Today we are going to be working with solids, and we're going to go over with a couple different things that you can do on your screen with primitives like cubes and spheres and cones, different things that you can do with those items in 123D. First, let's start by taking down a box, and just a basic box, and putting it onto your grid. We are going to look at different ways we can scale or resize this box. So if I click here at the bottom where it has scale, okay, you will see that there is an option for a uniform or also non-uniform scale. Now, if I would like to scale something in a uniform or otherwise known as an even type of way, then I would be going with uniform scale. Let's just say we want to increase it by a factor of 3. If I type in 3, you should now see that my box is 3 times bigger. It would work the same if I did 4 or 0.5. It's become half as small, or even 10. So the scale factor can help you scale something up by one size. Now let's say we want to scale something in a non-uniform way. Let's say we want to make the X, Y, and Z sides different sizes. So in X, let's make that 2. If we press tab, it will automatically take us over to the Y. Let's make that 3, and let's tab again and to the Z column and make that 1.5. Now we have scaled up this box in a non-uniform way. I have made it look more like a rectangle. If I wanted to put it onto the grid, I can press move and I can bring it up to the grid. So this is one way you can scale or change the size of an object. It would work the same if I was going to use a sphere and I was going to change the radius of it or the scale factor of it. I could make it larger or smaller if I use a decimal simply by changing the scale factor. If I use non-uniform for a sphere, it is going to make it look more like an oval. Okay, so if you see, I've changed it so it looks more like a flat disc type of oval. So you can do this with any object that you need to change the size of it in a way that's not even. If I click and press delete, my objects will go away. Now, let's say we needed to measure two different objects. We need to measure the distance between them. So I'm going to add a cylinder, and I'm going to add another cylinder. If I want to know the distance between these two cylinders, I am going to go up here to this tab, and I'm going to click on ruler. Ruler will measure the distance between two objects. I'm going to sort of turn around so I'm at the top. Let me exit this so I can get closer to the top. I'm going to pan over so you can see the top. There we go. So I'm going to click and I'm going to press ruler, and I'm going to measure it from this edge to this edge. Now, if I am looking at this negative 75 tells me that these cylinders are at a distance of negative 75. If I want to change that, I can use this arrow to bring them closer or further apart. Let's just say that I know that I want the distance to be 50. I can click on the middle one and type in 50 millimeters and press enter. And it will automatically change it to the distance that I have requested, which is 50. Now, let's say I wanted to align them at the midpoint. I'm going to click this gray box. Right now, it is giving me the minimum distance between these two objects. If I would like to measure them at the midpoint, I could click here and select midpoint. Now it is measuring the midpoint of this cylinder to the midpoint of that cylinder, which is only 40. Now I'm going to align it at 50 again. And now their midpoints are at 50. This could be very helpful for getting something to be a very exact distance. When we get into creating different projects, you may need to put something at a very specific distance. So this ruler function could be very, very helpful to you. Knowing how to use the ruler and read it and adjust the distances of two objects could be extremely helpful. You can press this green button if you want to exit this mode. I'm going to click the home screen and go back to a blank screen. Now, another thing that you can do to put objects in alignment is that I'm going to show you how to use the Align tool. So I want you to bring down a box and a cylinder. I am going to set my box at a higher height than my cylinder. Now note that I am not changing the height of the cylinder itself. I am picking up the cylinder and having it float over the grid. So I am not changing the height of the actual cylinder, so I'm not making the cylinder longer. I am picking it up, and you should see a little shadow under your grid. Then you know you have it right. Now let's say that I want to align both of these on the top. So I want this cylinder to be at the same height as this cube. Now, it's not good to just try to guess it and move them up and guess. What you would do is click to the side and highlight the both of them. Go up to the top and you will see that there is an align function. It is going to only align the objects that I have highlighted. Click on that button. Now I can look around. Now if I click this dot, you can see there's sort of like a ghost shadow of, if I click that dot, this cylinder is going to go to the highest height. It's going to align at the highest height with my cube. If, for instance, I click them into the middle, the cube and the cylinder are both going to move and they are going to perfectly align in the middle. If I click the bottom, the cylinder will not move and the cube will move all the way to the bottom. If I use this middle one, they are both going to come together in the middle. So they are going to align differently based on these black dots. If you're not sure where something will land at, then just pay attention to where the orange shadows are. Now let's just say I want to align mine to the highest height. That would be in line with the cube. I would click that, and now my cylinder is perfectly aligned with my cube. I'm going to undo that, highlight it, and I am going to align these two objects to the lowest point. Now they are both perfectly aligned at the bottom. They are both at the lowest point. Now this function can be very useful if you're trying to put two objects together perfectly, or if you're trying to, in a moment I'll show you how I create a wheel and put a hole through it. So if you needed something to be perfectly in the center, you could use this function. If I wanted these two objects to eventually merge together, I would keep clicking my middle buttons until they came together as one. Now these objects are perfectly merged together. They aren't going to be stuck together permanently, but if I needed something inside there in an exact way, I could use the Align tool to align them until they are perfectly together in the middle. We'll go over later how to merge and subtract and do things like that. So for now, I'm going to delete this. Now I'm going to take a cylinder down and I'm going to change the radius to 80. Now, this is how you could sort of create a wheel, and I'm going to use that same align function to create a middle hole, a perfectly centered middle hole. It's difficult to just sort of guess where the center of the cylinder is. So we're not going to guess. we're going to get another cylinder and place it on the top. If I highlight both of them and go to my align function, if I do not press these, you don't want to press these, okay? But if I press these ones on the side, now this cylinder is perfectly aligned inside of the cylinder with the larger diameter. Ooh, my screen's going a little crazy. Click on the small cylinder and we're going to do something called Smart Scale, okay? Click on the little cylinder. If you go down here, you'll see Smart Scale. I'm going to click this middle button that is yellow, and I'm going to drag it down. Okay, if you can see now, it's dragged all the way down, and I'm going to show you how you might subtract this little cylinder from the larger one. So one important thing to note is that this must be drug all the way down through the cylinder for this to work. So I'm going to go up here and I am going to find my subtract button. Okay, there it is, subtract. If you go right here, you'll see the subtract button. They have to be overlapping to subtract. I am going to first press the large cylinder because that's what I want something to be taken from, and then I'm going to press the small one. Don't click anything else and then press enter. Now I have a perfect cylinder that has a hole through the center of it. Say you were going to create a wheel for a car or a toy. This would be a way for you to be able to create a perfect wheel that has a perfect center. Now let's just say I wanted the materials of this to look different. I'm going to click on whatever I have. You could do this with any object. Bring down any object. If you click on it, you'll see that there is a materials option. This material should allow us to either make the material of the object look different or change the color of the object. Sometimes you may want to change a color to make it look a little bit more realistic, or I could change the tone of it. Here I'm making it look like wood. There's an option for glass. I could make it look copperish. There are all different options for different types of materials that you could use. This might be something you might want to do if, say, you're creating an example of a wooden toy. Now, obviously, in the 3D printer, it's not going to print out this material, but it can help you visualize a little bit better what something might look like if you can change the materials of the object. If you like to go back to default, you can just press the default button, and it will take you back to the normal one. So you can do this with anything. I could do this also to the cube here. I could press the materials button and I could change the material or the color. I could change the material or the color of my object to anything that I would like.